accidentally clicked channel art. I don't want to change my channel. All right, channel and live from New York. Okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Body Count Podcast, where we talk about our favorite movies. It's going to be a blast, so sit back, relax. It's going to be a bloodbath. I am joined here with Being Scared. Being Scared, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Good. I'm good. I just want to apologize because we had a little bit of technical difficulties. That's what happens when you live in California and you have crappy Comcast internet. Being Scared, can you relate somehow?
Yeah, my internet sucks like to the extreme.
I know it's where we live in California. They only offer crappy internet, so it just freaking sucks.
It's so
But
true, man. Like no matter where we could move around our area, there's no really good internet available
nope,
anywhere. It
it
sucks.
sucks. Well said. I remember when I was signing up for my Comcast. When I was signing up, they were like, "Okay, well, what kind of things do you like to do?" And I'm like, "I'm a YouTuber. I need to upload fast." And they were like, "Oh, this is a perfect package." And I'm like, "Great." They're like, "What else do you do?" I'm like, "I watch Netflix." And they're like, "Okay, so like, what kind of speeds do you like?" And I'm like, "I'd never ever want to see that red ring that loads up to 25 and then stops." And they were like, "Oh, okay, this is the perfect package for you." And I'm like, "And I'll never experience that?" They're like, "Never." And I'm like, "And I'll be able to upload nice and fast?" And they were like, "Yes." And I was like, "Great, sign me up for 2 years contract." They signed me up, and then the next time I uploaded a video, it was like 3.5 hours long, and I was to like upload.
Yeah.
Effing Comcast. And then I'm watching freaking Netflix, and all of a sudden it's like 25%. And I'm like, "Oh, I hate you." So annoying. But we're here to talk about a very spooky movie, a 10-year-old movie, a movie that makes you look behind your back.
And
And
it's
we are going
called On Golden Pond.
to It's called My Best Friend's Wedding. We are going to talk about The Strangers. This movie was directed by Brian Bertino. It stars Liv Tyler and Scott Speedman. It was released on May 30th, 2008, 10 years ago, a little over 10 years ago already.
Jeez. Oh man.
It's insane. I can't believe how long ago that came out. It literally felt like yesterday that I watched it for
10
the first
years
time.
ago, man.
10. Yeah, we're old now.
God. That's a decade. That
I
came out
know.
a decade ago.
Yeah. I got a story about this movie. I want to tell you about it. This happened back in 2008. I was living in Nevada. I was hanging out with a bunch of friends, and we decided we want to go see The Strangers. And so we used to smoke a ton of weed back in the day, and we all piled up in my friend's van, and we drove down to the movie theater, and we were all really, really stoned. And so I think we all gave one of our friends like $10 each or whatever to go buy all the tickets at once. And so he went and he bought all the tickets, and then he gave us each of our ticket, and we gave it to the ticket boy, and we all got in our seats back when you could pick whatever seats you wanted to. And we sat in our seats, and we're sitting there and we're watching it. And all of a sudden, like these weird opening credits start, and I'm like, "Okay, this is cool, whatever." And then all of a sudden the title of the movie pops up, and it goes, The Happening. And I'm like, The Happening? Like, what the heck? I'm like, I thought we were seeing The Strangers. And then I was like, what? Like, oh, what happened was I gave the money to my friend, and he bought tickets to the wrong movie.
Oh, did you watch the whole movie?
Yeah, we stayed and we watched The Happening.
Damn, that movie sucks.
Yeah, it does kind of suck. I mean, it was good when we watched it because we were really, really stoned, so it was actually kind of scary to us. But I definitely wish that I would have watched this movie when it came out in the theater. Do we have Unit 522 here?
Yeah, I'm here.
Looks like it. Yeah.
What's up,
Hey,
everybody?
man. Sorry I'm late. I had to walk my dogs.
Oh, freaking dogs. They need to learn how to walk themselves. Buy them a treadmill or something.
Yeah, they're older, so they're really picky about when they choose to do their business. So it took longer than expected.
Oh, it's all good. We're just happy you're here. So got Being Scared here. We got Unit 522 here. And I'm happy you're here. Better late than never. And we are just talking about getting into The Strangers.
Oh, yeah.
So again, well, let's back up. Let's do some guest questions now that you're here, Unit.
All
So I want to ask you, what is your favorite scary movie?
It's actually it's a tie. It's always been a tie between The Shining and Candyman.
Wow. That actually, we had horror with Heidi on the last episode, and her movie was The Shining.
Oh
So that's
yeah,
pretty
the
interesting.
Jack Nicholson's performance really does like many numerous factors about that movie makes it just stand out. And there's been a lot of studies done on that film. It's like it's very infamous. It's a very infamous, famous film, and it's for a reason because there's a lot of symbolism in that film. And with Candyman, you know, same thing. Tony Todd's performance just is very memorable. The whole urban legend thing that it had going for it was also very cool. um Both of those movies have this very cold atmosphere that a lot of films are not able to replicate because of the way it was shot. You know, Stanley Kubrick had he was a very he had a lot of he was a very visionary man. You know, he a lot to
Mhm.
do with visuals and stuff. And I don't know, there's this very cold psychological element to both of those films that just make them stand out to me.
Well, you know what's funny about I've never seen the Candyman. I'll plan on seeing it eventually, but what I have said about The Shining was like I've never fully seen that movie. Like I've seen parts of it, but I've seen all like the infamous parts. You know, like the twins, the blood, and the
You've never
elevator stuff.
seen the full movie? Are
No.
you out of your mind?
Dude, I've
Mm.
tried to I watched it on Netflix. I started it on Netflix and then like I fell asleep because it was like midnight when I turned it on or something like that. But I feel like I've seen the movie because I've seen like so many iconic parts from it. But I definitely need to check it out, especially with Unit's high words on that
Dude,
movie.
it's a really, really good movie.
I believe you guys, so I'll definitely try and watch
Yeah,
it.
it's based on a novel by Stephen King, but Stephen King, he doesn't like that film because he thought it like it. Because I can tell why he doesn't like the film, because putting myself in the perspective of the writer who wrote the book and reading the book and the feel he was going for the book, it took those elements and made a similar story, but there was a lot that was changed from the source material. It was almost like two different stories with similar elements. That's probably why
Hmm.
he distanced himself from that film. And he wrote a screenplay in 1997 for a miniseries, and it was horrible. And it was like he had his shot to adapt the story properly, and
Uh-huh.
he it just did not work out. The I don't want to say the writing was bad because Stephen King wrote the screenplay, but the screenplay was just awful. You know,
Yeah.
and it's like, well, you had your chance, but you blew it. So, and Stanley Kubrick's Shining is way more memorable. It had a better atmosphere, better acting, and just a better story overall. So, like, you may not like what Stanley Kubrick did to your story, but he effectively made a better film adaptation than you did. So,
Yeah. And
yeah.
I could imagine writing a novel and then trying to write a screenplay is not the same type of you know what I mean, the same type of thing.
Well, another screenplay that he wrote was Maximum Overdrive, and that was that was laughably bad. But at the same time, it had like this, you know, it had the really campy charm to these vehicles coming to life, these vending machines coming to life and killing people. So, you
Wow.
know, yeah,
Yeah, definitely some good ones to check out or to laugh at. So let's get back into The Strangers now. So,
right.
right. So this movie stars Liv Tyler and Scott Speedman. The release date was May 30th, 2008, 10 years ago already. It had a runtime of 85 minutes theatrically, and if you've seen the unrated version, it's 91 minutes. It had a budget of $9 million, and the box office it made 82.4 million. That's a good amount of money to make on a $9 million budget.
Oh yeah.
Oof, straight up. Let's get into the plot, which I got to go to my IMDb for that. The plot is a young couple staying in an isolated vacation home are terrorized by three unknown assailants,
Hmm.
and that's
Yeah.
my baby in the background, just being a little fart. She's like, "Stop talking about that movie. It's so scary." Okay, so let's just get into this movie. Being scared, I'm gonna ask you, who was your favorite character in this movie?
Uh, well, how the hell could it not be Jack Nicholson? He was
I
definitely my
think we're
favorite.
on a different movie now.
Oh yeah,
We're talking about The
that's kind
Strangers.
oh, you mean The Strangers? Okay,
Yeah.
You thought you were talking about The Shining.
I'm ready to talk about The Shining. No,
That's great.
Strangers. My favorite character,
Mhm.
Scott Speedman's character. I like the brooding kind of hero kind of character. I think I said that in the last podcast. I've always liked that kind of character. So he's definitely my favorite character.
Unit, who's your favorite character in this movie?
Hands down, the nameless man in the mask that never says anything.
And why is that?
He is more. He's more. He reminds me of the original Michael Myers, and more. He's more of an element of danger than he is an actual character. Um, his mask is super creepy. I've always the standout thing for me about the strangers is the masks. They are all very effectively creepy. And you had some character to the one of the masked women who actually talk and
Mhm.
like she can actually say words, but he doesn't say anything ever. Not
No.
not even in the sequel, he doesn't say anything.
Oh,
So
you've seen the sequel?
yes,
Was it
I
good?
wasn't very impressed with it, and I know we're talking about the first one, but I will say I was very disappointed with the Strangers Pray at Night. But
Ah,
I will give it the film credit where it's due, where they stuck true to this character.
okay.
Like I said, Michael Myers, they referred to Michael Myers as the Shape on set because he was more of like a, you know, like a more of a, like I said before, like this element of danger, this thing more than he is an actual character. And I get that vibe from the masked man. And again, another creepy aspect about it is he doesn't say anything ever.
Yeah.
He does not say a word. And I think, that says a lot about the character that this person is truly disturbed.
Absolutely. My favorite character, I would also have to agree with being scared, is Scott Speedman. And the reason why I say that is because in the first shots you get of this movie is pretty much he's proposing to his, I guess, girlfriend, who's played by Liv Tyler, and he
How
gets
could you not propose to her?
oh, I don't know how long he waited, but that was a mistake. Should have done it the first time he saw her. He's like, "Let me put a ring on it, please." And so he
It probably
proposes.
would have ended the same. It probably would have ended the same if he did.
Uh, so he proposes to her and she shoots him down. And, there's a lot of people out there who are very emotionally driven and being turned down. I mean, especially by Liv Tyler, you could definitely see how somebody would just be like, you know what? F you. You know what I mean? Like, screw you. Then, like, you don't want to be with me. Then we're done. And like, stay here. Like, find your own ride home. There's people who react that way, but he didn't react that way. He still takes her to his parents' home, and he still is respectful to her. And there's even a point where she says that she's out of cigarettes. And instead of just being like, oh, well, I bet your fiance would have got you some. You know what I mean? He actually is like,
It was a lot of tension in the atmosphere
yeah,
of that film, and you could feel it. So I don't blame him for wanting to go to the convenience store to get out of that for a few.
right. No, I get that too. But I mean, at
He's
the
like,
end of the
oh, it's
day,
50 miles away. No problem. I'll be right.
I think I'm going to walk actually. But he's still a stand-up guy. I mean, he still cares for her, and he protects her, and the things he does in the movie, I think he does smart things as opposed to a lot of other male characters in horror movies.
Mm.
A lot of them, they do stupid stuff, and I don't get that from him in this movie. I get a very smart, strong character, so that's why he's my favorite character.
Well, I
So
kind of disagree with you a
okay.
little bit. I do agree with you on some points, but obviously, I'll give him this much. He was very honest about his incompetence because when they pulled out the shotgun, he previously told his fiance that him and his father would shoot all the time, and turns out that was a lie. He doesn't know how to wield a shotgun,
Right.
and at least he was honest about that. But there was some weakness about that character,
Yeah.
But it wasn't like he was trying to play it down. When it push came to shove, he's like, yeah, I really don't know what I'm doing here. So, but
Well, what is he
again,
gonna do though? Lie about it? And he's like, wait, I know what I'm doing. I'm just
yeah,
pretending. I don't know what I'm doing.
that would have just made it a whole lot worse. But I do like his character though.
Yeah, I just like him more than Liv Tyler. She just to me, there's a lot of moments in the movie where she, with her reaction to him, is kind of just like she's a little rude. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And I think
Yeah.
someone in the position who just turned down somebody's engagement, I kind of think you would have a little bit more sympathy towards the
Mhm.
character and probably just a little bit more respect. I don't know. Her character was just less on the scale than his was in favorability. So That's why he's mine.
If I can just chime in on this real quick,
Yeah.
I think that both of the actors did perfectly on what would happen if they both left a wedding or whatever, kind of function that was, and he had planned to propose and she says no. I think that it was perfectly realistic how they both acted when they came back to the cabin house or whatever it was.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I think that she acted perfect, and she, you could tell that she felt bad for him, and she felt guilty, and he was kind of frustrated, but at the same time, he's in love with this woman. You know what I mean? So he's not gonna just leave her and leave her hanging. He loves her, and you can tell that he's not like, overly emotional. He's like kind of, I don't know, he's just
kind of a man's man,
trying to be a man about it, but at the same time, you can tell that he's hurt. But I don't know. In my opinion, I think they both did perfect.
I would agree. I think the acting in this movie is really well done by everybody. I mean, the cool thing is this movie's not saturated with a lot of extra characters. You know what I mean? You're really only focusing on the two main characters and then the three villains. And what you said, how the main villain doesn't even say a word. But you still get this like fear from him. You know what I mean? Because like you said, he's more of like a fearful force than he is an actual character that's like, oh, I'm sadistic, I'm psychotic, I just, I want to kill you guys. Like he's not coming up with stupid cliche horror lines.
If he just said a single word, it would have made the movie less scary.
But he had the characteristics like you could hear his breathing, which was something again that reminded me of the original Halloween, where whenever Michael Myers was near, but he was off camera, you could hear that subtle breathing, that muffled breathing, he had that same thing, and you could see his eyes, he didn't say a word, but if you look in his eyes were like really wide all the time, like he was really like tripping balls through all of this or something. But you could tell by looking at his eyes through those holes in his mask that this person is fucking like insane.
He probably just popped like 5 ecstasy like right before they knocked on the door, But
yeah, and making a very dark comparison. One of the I was watching this documentary about the Columbine shooters, and one of them was under the influence of narcotics, but the other one was not. And this person was just crazy, like just crazy.
I did not know that. Huh.
And there's something that is very unsettling about somebody who's just like naturally like has the propensity to become a psychopath,
Yeah, that reminds me of something. It's a really good point that you brought up, that he never says a word and he's wearing a mask, which leaves the mysteriousness, and you don't know what this guy's about. You don't know what he looks like. You don't know what he sounds like. All you know is that he's a psycho, and that makes it much scarier. And it reminded me of something like I know a lot about the movie Jaws, and I know that Steven Spielberg originally kind of meant to show the shark more in that movie. And I'm not going to get into get us off track too much. We shouldn't be here. Sorry. Just real quick. I know that Steven Spielberg meant to show the shark more, but problems arose and things didn't really work out the way he wanted to. And it kind of worked out. It worked out to his benefit, because less is more. And not showing the shark, like especially at the very beginning of the movie, you don't see anything except for the woman like thrashing around in the water, and it just leaves your imagination to want to see what it wants and just imagine what it wants to, and it just made it scarier. And one thing that this reminded me of real quick is the movie Hush that I saw on Netflix, I think like a year or two ago. And I really enjoyed that movie. I thought it was really good. I thought the main actress did a great job. But when the killer took off his mask, spoiler alert, he takes off his mask.
He looks like a wimp.
That was a huge mistake.
Absolutely. Agreed.
And when you see his face, he didn't look threatening. He just looked like a goofball. And it was like, why the hell did you do that? He should have been wearing the mask the whole movie, and you never see his face.
Yep.
That's
that was a cool mask too.
What?
That was a cool mask in that movie too.
Yeah.
Just white and smiling. That was it. You know what I mean? Yeah. And all right, let's get back to The Strangers though. But good points, you guys. No, it's all good. But I want to talk about the first act of the movie where like being scared, like you mentioned, their acting is just really good. They're acting sad. Like Scott Speedman is beat up, and Liv Tyler, you can tell that it's just like there's an elephant in the room that they're not talking about. And then all of a sudden they get this knock on this door, and they go and they open the door, and it's just some girl standing there in the dark, and she says, "Is Tamara home?" Right? That's what she says, right? Exact
Yeah.
words.
Yeah. Yes.
And Scott Speedman's looking at her and he's like, "No," and then she's like, "Are you sure?" And he's like, "Yeah, like get out of here, you freak." And then so she's like, "Oh, okay." And then I listened to another podcast and they said that they mentioned that that girl says, "See you later." Does she say that?
Yes, she does.
Okay. I'd
Yes.
never caught that.
I never did either.
I think she said. I think her exact words were "see you around," and then she
Okay.
just walks away.
I didn't catch
Yeah.
that at all.
But if you also notice in that scene, she leaves and then he goes to flip on the light switch and it's not on. And then he like twists the light bulb and it turns on.
She purposely
Yeah.
unscrewed the light bulb so when they opened the door, she would be shrouded in shadow.
Yeah, I just like that. It's so creepy and it's
Yeah.
so eerie. And then she leaves, they shut the door, and I think that's when she like mentions she's out of cigarettes, and he's like, "All right, I'll BRB." And so he like leaves, and then while she's there kind of just chilling by herself, she's standing there in the kitchen, and all of a sudden you just see the famous dude come out of the darkness, and he's just standing there looking at her. And you're
Yeah,
just like,
the
"Oh
man
my
in the
God."
mask. Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the best scenes in any horror movies ever.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's just one of the creepiest scenes, because what I hate about horror movies is when they just have the most cheapest, stupidest jump scare. You know what I mean? Like in any other movie, she'd be standing there, she'd be looking off into the distance or whatever, and all of a sudden you just hear like a big bang, and you're like, "What was that?" And everybody in the audience jumps, and she turns around, and you know what I mean? Like some picture frame fell over or something, and you're like, "Oh, what is that?" You know what I mean? But they just show this guy come out of the darkness, and he's watching her. And that's what's so cool about the fact that he doesn't talk or even really do anything. He's just a psycho. He's in there and he's looking at her. He doesn't run up on her and strangle her. He's just like, it's not time. It's not time to kill her. I'm going to toy with her,
Right.
And then she puts on that music, and then there's another bang at the door, and it's the same girl. Just that whole scene, like before Scott Speedman even comes back, she's terrorized by this girl at the front. The music's playing, and then she ends up coming into contact with the scare. I call him the Scarecrow guy because he looks like the Batman.
Yeah,
villain.
he does. He does, definitely, for sure.
But that's why I don't know. I always call him the Scarecrow guy.
He also he also resembles the guy from the town that dreaded sundown.
Yeah.
He also reminds me of not Freddy, Jason. Before he got
part 2 Jason, where
Yeah.
I'm sure the
Pete
director
Sack.
of the original Strangers movie saw the sequel and was like, "You messed it up."
Yeah, I mean, I'll give the props to the sequel to where they stayed true to what the Strangers were. It's just the story was very thin.
Yeah, but
I can imagine.
Sometimes you watch a movie and somebody that's not known for making movies and that's not popular for making great movies just somehow comes out with a really great movie. And I think that the director of this movie was definitely an example of what I'm talking about. He just knew what he was doing. He knew how to scare you,
Mm-hmm.
He just knew what he was doing. Everything we're talking about is props to the director, period, in my opinion.
Oh yeah. He even little trivia about this is he even was telling Liv Tyler, like, okay, so you're going to expect a loud bang from right here. And so she's like waiting for that bang, and then he would have a bang come from a different part where he never told her, so that he could get an actual genuine jump scare out of her.
Yeah.
So whenever she jumps in the movie, that's a genuine scare, like she's not acting. And I think little things like that, when you're a director and you can give your actors and actresses tips like that, I think you got something to say. I think you're a pretty skilled director.
And also another big thing is you have to know how to establish a atmosphere about. That's what I love about The Shining and Candyman. They all have really creepy atmospheres, and this film has a very good creepy atmosphere, good setting, well shot. These are all very important things. You have to have a good story, but you also know how to show that story. You have to know how to show it properly.
Well, what's good about the atmosphere is the entire movie. First of all, the timing of this movie takes place at 4 in the morning. So this isn't 6:30 in the evening when the sun's going down. Like this is a time when people should be asleep in their beds. You know what I
Right.
mean? And everything
Right.
the town is quiet. The stars are out. And the inside of the house, some lights are on, but the entire setting of this movie is dim. You know what I mean? Like everything is low lit. So that's what makes it creepier. It gives them so many more shadows, so many more places that killers can be. And oh god, I just like you said, Unit, the setting of this movie, just the way they do it is so good. But I want to know you guys' thoughts on that, the whole openings, not the opening sequence, but the first act where she's getting terrorized by the guy and then the girl at the door. Like, what are your guys' thoughts about that?
Well, the first act we also have to talk about, like, you know, it was revealed that, you know, they were at this wedding and he proposed to her and they came home and they were really depressed. We got that sense, and so it kind of like you kind of get invested in that because you start thinking of drawing parallels in real life. You know, if that ever happened to me, like you find yourself thinking about that. You know,
Yeah,
I'm
definitely.
currently engaged and you know, I went through this whole elaborate thing to propose to my fiance. And if she would have turned me down that night, it would have
Oh
been
yeah.
a very awkward, you know, there was no plan for it to go south. So
Hey,
you kind
Unit,
of,
can I ask you a question?
sure.
Okay, so how long were you with your girlfriend before you proposed?
Well, technically, I've known my girlfriend for years. We went to elementary school together, but I was with her for
Aw.
about 3 years before I did pop the question.
And before you pop the question, did she have any idea that you were thinking about marriage, or was she blindsided by the
Oh
proposal?
no, it was talked about. You know, we had discussions. We knew it was time. You know,
Oh yeah, and then so me and being scared are both married, not to each other, but we have, but we both. I know
if you
for a
were,
fact.
I wouldn't have a problem with it.
Well, in
Well,
that case, you know what? Let's just come clean, man. We're
I'm tired
married.
of hiding it. I'm just tired of it.
Yeah, and you guys have a baby together. You know.
Yeah, that was tricky. But no, okay. So being scared, he was with his girl for a while before they got married, and they talked about being married before he popped the question. My wife and I, same thing. Like we had always talked about, I can't wait to get married and have a family and blah blah blah. So when I proposed, I knew that she was going to say yes. I
Right.
just didn't know how to propose yet, you know. But my question is, how long do you think that Scott Speedman and Liv Tyler in the movie were dating before he asked the question?
I mean, it had to been a while, but you know,
Why? Why does it have to have been a while?
I don't know. I mean, I guess you're right because she said no. There had to be a reason that she said no. Maybe she just, I don't know. If they were together for a while, she obviously did not overcome certain insecurities, I guess,
Mhm.
because she does touch upon that in the movie where she's like, "I'm just not ready," blah blah blah. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, but like again, we're talking about this whole thing and engagement. Seeing one go south is very heartbreaking in a way. So you kind of start thinking about that, and then you know, boom, the plot takes over. This mysterious woman knocks on the door. This story is taking a very sharp turn into, you know, this very it already started off very gloomy, sorry. I said gloomer. I don't know what the fuck. Anyway, it already started off with a very gloomy atmosphere because, you know, she turned him down. Now this woman, you know, it's like one thing after another. So as far as the first act goes, it does a very good job of, you know, building up this atmosphere. You know, you
And
get
investing you.
investing you into the story. You care about these characters, and that's a very important thing. You have to care about the characters, and you know, in order to be
Yeah.
invested in the movie. So you
Yeah.
obviously you feel sorry for these two people because they're going through a really hard time right now. And the last thing they need is a masked freak knocking at their door asking where Tamara is. So
And who is freaking Tamra? Who is she?
I don't
No
know.
one knows. And no, I don't know if anyone will ever find out. But
Little does the audience know that Scott Speedman and Liv Tyler actually met that night at that wedding.
Yeah, I mean, no wonder she said no, right?
well, that was kind of my point. I was going to bring up, like, well, what if the reality was they'd only been dating for like 2 or 3 months? And he felt like, oh, I just love her and I want to be with her. And she was like, no. You know what I mean? Like, I wish they would have had some sort of, I mentioned this a while to you being scared a long time ago. Like, what if they would have had some sort of picture frame in that house that showed a picture of them, like, you know, sharing a margarita or something like that, with like a frame that said like 2 years, you know what I mean? Or 3 years or something. So you could kind of get a time frame, because like, what if the whole movie changes? Because what if they had only been together for 3 months and they barely know each other?
Well, she obviously was comfortable enough to go with him to his father's cabin and take a shower and stuff like that. So, you know,
Yeah, maybe. I mean, like, but could you imagine that though? Like, if you think about the other events of the movie, like the part where he's loading the shotgun and she's like, "I thought you said you've been hunting," and he's like, "I haven't." You know what I mean? Like, my wife knows everything about me. You know what I mean? She knows that if I would have told her years ago that I'd gone hunting, now she would be like, "Dude, you're a wimp. You've never gone hunting." And I've been like, "I know, I lied." You know what I mean? But like, she still doesn't know that about him. Like, what if? I don't know. I just think it'd be cool to think about that. I also got another question for you guys. I heard this in another podcast covering this movie. They were under the assumption that when she said no, they were gonna break up, and this was just like their last time together. Do you guys believe that, or do you think like, no, they'll probably work it out, but it's just an awkward night?
there's not enough evidence to point one way or the other. It could have gone. It definitely. It wouldn't surprise me if that was the case. But the movie, I guess, I didn't. The movie didn't think that subplot was important enough to really shed a light on one way or another. So anything that could be said about it is pure speculation.
What do you think? Just your own thoughts.
My own thoughts, it looked like it was that relationship was destined to be doomed.
Think so? Because you remember there's that scene right before the first time the girl comes and they're about to have sex again.
It looked like it was doomed, but when the shit started happening, she obviously I guess she surprised herself. I got the sense that she surprised herself how much she cared for Speedman's character.
Very good point.
You know, I get the feeling, like, I don't know, when I've watched it, I've kind of, my imagination has told me that they were together for like a year, and that was long enough for him. He was in love with her and she's in love with him, but she just wasn't sure enough with him long enough to make that decision. I don't think that she had any kind of clue that he was going to do anything like that, and that's why she said no, and it was just a bad night. I fully got the impression that they would be fine and it was just a bad night.
Yeah, I kind of felt that way too. I wasn't sure. Like I said, they're about to have sex, and then even at the end of the movie when they're tied up, spoiler. Even at the end when they're tied up, I think she's even wearing the ring, and she's like, "I love you," and he's like, "I love you."
In the
too,
middle of the
you know?
night, like when they're, when they're about to make love, and they're like, and he even says to her, like, "Are you my girl?" Like, you can tell, like, that they're in love, and it was just, she just wasn't ready to make that step yet, but she's still very much his girl and she's in love with him, and that's the impression I got. Maybe I'm just like a sappy romantic guy, but
I don't know.
that's what I
That's
got
the
out of it.
that's the thing that's so well done about this movie is, you know, you get just those little flashbacks. It's not like we spend 25 minutes of the movie with them at that wedding and seeing how they interact and they're mushy gushy talking to their buddies and stuff and getting drunk, and then they drive home and have a nice conversation. You get none of that. All you do is just see basically a few little flashbacks of him being like, "Hey, come here." You
But
know,
we're forgetting about the fact that he called his friend over to come get him.
oh yeah. Well, I was gonna move on to that pretty
Yeah,
much
so
now
like
because
that kind of revealed that things were, yeah.
I
What
don't
you
want to be
guys are saying,
louder.
yeah, what you guys are saying may be true, but obviously, like there was probably something that we never saw going on with these two, that really just caused a rift between them.
You know what's cool that we're talking about right now is that we're not even talking about the scary parts of the movie yet. You know what we're
Yeah, I
talking
know.
about? Their relationships.
Yeah.
Because, and
And we
I'm
have
not
20
being funny.
minutes left, so let's get this shit right.
Yeah, yeah. I just, one last thing I wanted to say about the characters themselves. That's why this movie is so good. It's really, in reality, it's not that scary. It's just, it's really well done. The characters are so good. From somehow the way we barely get any context of their relationship. We just see that they went through a hard time, and we barely get to know them, but we care about them. And that's why we care about the things that happen to them. So speaking of the things that happen to them is Scott Speedman comes back. They're talking to each other, and she's like, there's a man in the house in a mask. And he's like, what are you talking about? And she's like, I don't know, a fucking mask. And he's like, what the, you know what I mean? Well, let me get my shotgun. And I think this is the point that I was making about Scott Speedman, is that he makes smart moves in the movie. What they do is they find themselves kitty cornered in their room, and he's got a shotgun pointed out the door, because I mean, what would you do in reality? Like, you know, in every other horror movie, some girl would just be, you know, oh my God, breathing really hard. I'm so scared. I'm so scared. You know, but you don't get that. What you get is them being like, okay, we need to defend ourselves against these psychos who are trying to kill us, and then they're held up in their room. And then Unit, like you mentioned, he calls his buddy and he goes, I need you to bail me out. Like, things didn't go as planned. And so the dude, he eventually pulls up, and he calls the guy's phone, and he's like, hey man, it's me. I'm your best friend. I'm here to bail you out. And he walks through the house, and
they throw a brick through his windshield though.
Oh, dude, I forgot about that. So yeah, they do that, and he's just like, what? And so he goes into the house, and he's slowly creeping around. But in the meantime, Speedman doesn't even know that his buddy's coming. He got an answering machine. So he's sitting there posted up, and all of a sudden, I love how the character who is his friend is walking down the hallway, and you get the masked assailant coming up behind him, and he's holding an axe, and he's gonna kill this guy.
And the record player is like spinning, and like it keeps like skipping.
Yep. And as he's walking down the hallway, the killer's behind him, and he's gonna kill him. And but the guy almost turns around. He like looks over his shoulder almost, but he doesn't. And then he keeps walking forward, and he takes one more step into the line of sight, and then boom, brains are on the wall. Dude falls down, and they recognize immediately that they just killed this guy's like best friend. And I even like it's kind of comedic in a way. The killer himself, he's like, oh okay, guess I don't have to worry about this guy. And he turns around and just like walks away. You know, job done. Oh, I love that. And then eventually they go to run for it, and they get taken by the killers, and they're tied up at the end. And we'll talk about that in a second. But all that middle stuff, Unit, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, obviously you were correct. They were obviously very amused by that, because the the masked people don't say much, but they formulate a plan to exit the house. I guess they go for that radio that was in the barn, and as soon as he opens that patio, the glass door or whatever, it says right there on the glass door in lipstick, killer. Like they were like mocking the situation.
Yeah, you just killed that guy.
Yeah, so like I said, the masked people, they don't say much in the film. Even the doll face mask woman and the other one, they don't say much, but through subtle things happening in the movie, it says a lot about their character, which is another very admirable part about this film, is like just subtle things that can be shown can say volumes. You know, you don't have to outright say, you know, it isn't like I said, sometimes less is more. But yeah, that was a very, and going back to what we said earlier, caring about these characters, you know, they going through this, they a failed marriage proposal, mass people trying to kill them. Now you just killed your best friend. So
yeah, worst night ever, maybe.
Yeah, you're having a very, very shitty night. And again, you feel sympathy for the characters, but the film is progressing in a very logical way. It's kind of at this point in the movie, it's kind of like a by the numbers slasher film, in my opinion. There's really nothing remarkable about what's happening. It's just, you know, it's the logical way to go.
I think you're right. Once he shoots his friend, from there it's pay by numbers, because then it's okay, we need to get out. You go here, I'll go here, and of course we're gonna get caught, but you don't want to, you know, it's just pay by numbers. That's why I think we can all three agree that the movie goes a little bit downhill right after that. But I'm gonna ask, being scared this right now, what would you do in reality if you were in their shoes and same circumstances? What would you do when you found out that people are trying to F with you and your phone is dead or burnt or whatever?
Probably a mixture of what they both did. I've never been in a situation like that, and you know, I've always enjoyed, and I'm not saying this on purpose, I've always enjoyed being scared, but at
So
the
self-ego, man. God.
but at the same time, I've always wondered what would I really do in a situation where something serious was happening if
Yeah.
somebody was trying to get into my house. And I try to tell myself that I would be a man and I would beat the shit out of them and I would protect my family. But at the same time, I mean, there's a part of me that think that would rise to the occasion and do something like that. And there's a part of me that's like, I kind of think that I would freak out also. So to answer your question, I don't know. I can't honestly tell you what I think I would do for sure. I can't predict something like that because it would be so extreme and so different than anything I've experienced in my life. And I don't know. I think it would be a mixture of freaking out and rising to the occasion to do what I need to do. But at the same time, you said in their position, and my
Right.
family wasn't there, you know?
It's just
So
you and your girlfriend.
yeah, it's just me and my girlfriend. So dude, I really don't know. I really don't know. I'd like to think that I would take care of it, and it would probably be some kind of a mixture of running away with my tail between my legs and fighting back. I really can't answer. I don't know.
Unit, what would you do if you were these guys?
Well, probably, I had the shotgun. I'd probably barricade myself in a room until, daytime and probably make a move for that radio in the barn that was behind the cabin.
I forgot
Uh,
about the shotgun.
yeah, I like they had the shotgun, so I definitely would probably just like wait it out kind of. And I'll tell you one thing. If I found myself on Speedman's character when he was going for that radio, I guess, and they pan the camera and they see the masked person, the masked man running at him, there would have been more of a struggle, I think,
Yeah.
between like because he had the shotgun, if I'm remembering this correctly. There would have been more of a you're not going to get up and just because a lot of adrenaline would be going through me, and you better you better be of one strong dude to knock me out when I'm like in that panic mode because I'm going for this radio in this barn. I have a gun with me. Like, it's going to take more than one hit to knock me out if I'm in that state of mind. I'm not saying I'm like, that's just science.
Yeah. That was
Well,
a pretty big kick, though. You got like kneed in the face at running speed.
Well,
if I can,
the guy was running towards him and he just like reached, like, you just see him like reach out with his hand and like kind of
Yeah.
like, I think there would have been like, I don't know. There would have been. I would have liked to think if I was in that guy's shoe, there would have been a lot more of a tussle between me and the masked person. I'm not saying I would win, but I had that. I have that shotgun. That shotgun is going right up your ass if you come near me.
That shotgun would have been out in front of me the entire time I was moving. There's
Right.
not 1 minute it would be at my hip. I would be, you
I
know what I mean?
I can definitely say that if with the I forgot about the shotgun. So with the shotgun in mind, if I had the shotgun, I would definitely do what they did in the movie, which was realistic to me, which was just sit in like a closet and just wait. And
Mhm.
I'm not saying that I wouldn't shoot my friend in the face the second that I saw somebody. I don't think that I would have shot just the first thing that I saw. I would have probably kept in mind all of the things that have been happening, that I called my friend and he's supposed to show up, and that it's a possibility that he might get here in the middle of this bullshit. So
The
I'm
heat
going
of
to
the
say
Fed
with confidence, I don't think I would have shot my friend in the face. I think that I would have waited to see a mask before I shot, but I definitely would have done the same thing. And I'm not just saying this to try to sound intelligent, because that's the only way that you can. I mean, you're tucked in a closet and you have a shotgun pointed out the door. You know what I mean? There's no way you
Yeah.
can fail. If somebody in a mask comes in your line of sight, they're done. And I can confidently say that I would have done that.
That's what I would have done. If this was me, I would have tucked myself in the corner like they did. I don't know why, even though he shot his friend, why they had to leave the room. Like, I would have just reloaded and just kept sitting there because
Yeah.
realistically,
I know.
I think I could sit there for a good 2 days. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
until I knew
I mean,
for
and at
sure.
least until the sun comes up, you know.
But let's talk
Yeah.
about the confrontation. Like, if it was you guys have children. Like, what if your kids were with you and you were going for that radio for whatever reason? You decided to, barricade your family in that room, and you're going to take the shotgun and you're going to go to this radio in the barn and try to get help. There, like, with that in mind, you have your wife and your kids in the house. This masked man's coming at you. You have a shotgun. There's going to be a struggle there, and you have to keep in mind, if you lose this fight, it could mean your family. So there'd be a with you guys in this situation and your kids being involved, there would be a lot more gravity to the situation, and I think that gravity would change things drastically if you guys were put in the same scenario.
There's
the
there's no
situation.
way in hell that I would have left the house not knowing if they have a gun. There's no way I would have ran out into the open with my family in the house. That's not possible.
Yeah,
I
I don't
would
think
have probably
I don't think you would, but I'm just saying, toying around with the what if scenario.
Yeah.
You decide that it's worth the risk or something. I don't know.
Dude,
Well-
honestly, dude, both you guys, my answer if I was in their scenario was to barricade myself. I 100% agree that if my family was there, I would do the same exact thing. It makes the most sense to me because, like you said, we know as the audience that they don't have guns. Like we know the dude's got an axe, and the other, I don't even know what the girls were really doing there besides just watching, But I would sit there. And even if he had a gun and he like all of a sudden just like randomly ran around the corner and just pointed a gun at me, I would at least have the gun pointed at him. But if I were to make a run for it,
Yeah.
like, dude, honestly, you don't know how many there are. You think there's 3, but there could be 5. You don't know.
And
And
10. You don't know.
it could be 10. And you don't know that if you go to take a run for it and run out of the house, family or not, if you run out of the house, you don't know if one of them is just standing on the side of the door, like the door frame, and just waiting there with a knife to just stab whoever runs out front, or if they have guns themselves. You don't know. And I think in the best situation, you need your back up against the corner with, even if there's a window in the room, they were under the window, so it's not like someone could shoot me from the window. And I think you just sit there and you just wait. I think that's the most reasonable thing you can do,
Yeah.
family or not.
Right.
I don't know.
That's what I would do. Well, yeah, family or not. If I was by myself, that's what I would do. If I had my family, that's what I would do, because you don't know what they have. And you're running out into the open to where they can do, like, you don't know what the hell is going on outside,
Right. And you were right. You were like, what you might have to have a struggle to protect your family, because if you lose, what are you going to do with your family? Like, they can't, you're the strongest one. You can't let them die, So I also think, like, I don't know if I would risk leaving and even having a confrontation that I could lose. I'd rather just stay there and just know that I have the upper hand. But let's move to the very end of the movie. Sadly, they do get captured by the people, which they should never have split up to begin with, but they do get captured by the people, and they're tied up, and the characters are standing in front of them. And, it's just a really silent morning.
Why are you doing this?
Yeah, why are you
Because
doing
you're
this? Yeah, because you were home, which is just, like I mentioned this to you being scared 2 years ago on our old podcast. I said, I don't know if that line was supposed to be like one of those lines that you hear where you're just like, oh my gosh, that's so scary. Or if, I don't know what feeling they were trying to get from me, but I didn't have any feeling of being scared. I just had, I know, right? I just had a feeling like we shouldn't be here. You know what I mean? And then, and then I was looking at the masked assailant, and I was like, dude, you have a big unit. I bet it's 5 feet 22 inches tall. No, but for real, like, the feeling I got was I didn't feel scared by that line. I just kind of felt like, bummer. You know what I mean? Like, that sucks that that's the only reason you guys are getting effed with right now. And I don't know if you were supposed to feel scared or not, but I didn't. But the end of the movie is they stab both of them through the stomach. Scott Speedman dies. Liv Tyler doesn't die. Una, is she in the sequel at all?
No.
Stupid. Why does she need to live then? But that's how the movie ends. You don't get to see their faces, not once, and I like that. So what do you guys feel about the ending? Was it well executed?
Well,
was it effective?
They ran into the Jehovah's Witnesses kids.
Yeah.
They were on, because the farmhouse, it's sad because, it was a stupid move going for that radio. That's what put them in this predicament in the first place. Going for that radio, it just went
Yep.
south from there. They never should have went for it, because if those kids were able to bike up to that house, it must have not been that isolated. I
Yeah.
know I grew up around like isolated. I grew up in an isolated area, and no paved roads were anywhere near the place where I grew up. And this place was off of a paved road. So point being, they weren't really probably that far away from the civilization. So it would be unreasonable to think that nobody would come by there eventually. Like he said, his father owned the house. The kids could bike to it. So the smart thing to do would have been to barricade yourself.
Yep.
And it sucks seeing that they decided to go for that radio, and now they're bounded and they're being stabbed. But going back, coming full circle, she takes the pamphlet off of the kid on the bike, and she gets back in the truck with the other two people, and she goes, "It'll be easier next time." And
Right.
the sequel just blows that out of the water. But at the time of seeing that film, it just gives you this very eerie sense that they're not done.
Right.
They're gonna do this again.
I want to just bring this up real quick. I feel very strongly about this. At the beginning of the movie, at the very, very beginning, you can hear like a 911 call or something from a kid, and they're like, "There's so much blood. There's blood everywhere," and that like grabs you, and you're like, "Holy shit!" You know what I mean? What's going on? And then while you're watching the movie, you still kind of keep that beginning in mind, and you're like, "Oh my god, what's going to happen to them?" The kid said there's blood everywhere. Like, what happens? I think they should have just, grew a pair of nuts and just let them both be like completely butchered and killed and like splatter blood all over the place, because that would be scarier. You're making a scary movie and you make one of them live at the end. Why? You know what I mean? So that you can feel a little bit of like happiness and relief at the end of the movie. It's a scary movie and you want to shock and scare the audience. Have them both be completely butchered, just like the beginning where that's what they lead you to believe happens. That's what I think it would have been a scarier movie if they both absolutely just get like completely butchered. That's just me though.
No, I agree. And I also have an issue with the end of it where, hey, turn your volume down. If I can hear me in the background. But I think it's a bad ending because the kids come in, and even though I like the fact that children find the scenario, like I think that's brilliant, but I don't like that they go to look at Liv Tyler, and the very last thing of the movie is a jump scare where she's just like, like, what? Come on, dude.
Lame.
And she's laying on the ground when previously she was tied up. So what did the killers do? Like untie her and throw her on the ground?
Yeah, in the unrated version, they show her like all stabbed up, crawling across the floor for a cell phone, and before she could reach it, the guy like comes up behind her and grabs the cell phone off of the floor and just walks away.
Oh, really?
Like they knew that she lived after the initial stabbing. They just like left her there to die, I guess.
But she didn't die. I got the distinct feeling that she made it and she lived. And when I'm watching a scary movie, I want to be scared. I want to be shocked at the end of the movie, not have a sense of relief and happiness. You know what I mean?
Yes, in a way. Like I do think that it would have been better to show them gutted. Like, and I'll make two Scream references real quick. In the beginning with Drew Barrymore, when she turns the patio light back on to see her boyfriend, and his guts are coming out. I think that was so good because you're like, whoa, this isn't just some like amateur murderer. This is like a disgusting person. Gutted this person, And then at the end of Scream, to your next point, when Gail Weathers is like, we're at the scene of blah, 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 and she's doing that impromptu news report, you get to see Dewey, the cop, and he lived, and he's like on a stretcher. You know what I mean? So that's kind of like a happy ending to a horror movie. But I would not say that because of that happy movie or ending of the movie that it changed how I felt about the horror of Scream. You know what I mean?
Dude, if I was a filmmaker and I had the power to make a movie and I was making a horror movie, I would pull out all the stops and I would make it shocking until the very end. No sense of relief or happiness at all. It would have been a way scarier ending, keeping the beginning in mind when the kid was on the phone and he's like, there's blood everywhere. If the kids like walk through the door and they see Scott Speedman laying on the ground and he's dead, and you're like, oh shit, he didn't make it. And then they walk through the living room and you see Liv Tyler's head like sitting in the middle of the floor or something. And then the movie
Cheesy.
ends.
I don't
You'd
like
be
that.
like, oh shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Maybe
That
not
would
the
have been
head,
a way more shocking, scary ending. That's what they should have did, in my
but
opinion.
just them covered in blood and entrails everywhere. I think that would have been cool. Do you
Yeah.
guys think that it was a smart choice to have technically the end of the movie in the opening scene?
Yes, I thought that was good, but I thought they did it wrong.
What about you, Unit?
I'm not really a big fan of that. Like, let's just see, like, have the story start and just have it unfold. Like, have it the events unfold naturally. We don't need an inclination of what's to come.
Yeah, I kind of
Like,
agree with that as well.
I've never like it doesn't bother me that much, but I'd rather just like find out what happens rather than, oh, this is going to happen, so let's see what led up to this. Like, I'm not a fan of that type of approach to storytelling.
Yeah, and I just don't agree with the fact that they let her live and not put her in the sequel. Like, why?
She's not
What's
there
the
at
point?
all.
Well,
Not
I
even
actually
a
heard that she
scene.
does make a cameo in the sequel. No,
No, not at all, man. I'm
Any
sorry.
mention?
Like, no.
Oh wow.
Liv Tyler did not want anything to do with that film, man, and I don't blame her.
Okay, I got another question. This is a hypothetical scenario. Would you guys be interested if they made another Strangers movie, but it was a prequel to the first movie?
It will
So
be.
you know this?
I know. Like, if it, I don't know if they're making another one, but I can tell you, and I don't want to spoil anything for anybody, but I'll tell you this: if they are going to make another Strangers movie, it will take place before Prey at Night.
Okay, well, let me explain what I mean then. Because I mean a prequel with Liv Tyler and Scott Speedman, where you get to see a lot more of them before this happens, and the end of the movie is the lead up to the first Strangers movie. Would you guys be interested in watching that?
the only no. If
Not
I
saying a
saw
horror movie,
anything else, if I saw anything else having to do with the Strangers with Liv Tyler and Scott Speedman, I would be like, what the hell? No. The only way that I would be interested is if it was a prequel and I knew that it was the same director that did the first movie and it had a different kind of feel in the initial teaser trailer than Prey at Night did. Because when I saw that trailer, I kind of knew that it was going to be shit, honestly.
Yeah, me
And
too.
I still honestly want to see it just out of curiosity. I want to see it.
Definitely, if you guys enjoyed the first film, like you owe it to yourselves to at least give the sophomore a chance. Because I'm not gonna lie to you, there are some very good scenes in that film. There's this one scene where the masked stranger actually, there's a guy in a car, and for whatever reason he can't really move. I'll just let you know, imagine what's going. He can't move that well. He's aware though. The masked guy opens the car door and sits down next to him.
What?
And remember what I said earlier. The
He
masked
doesn't say
man
anything.
doesn't say anything. He just,
Ugh.
but he does turn on the radio. So
It's like
there,
Bumblebee from Transformers.
that's one of my favorite scenes in the movie.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna give it a try. But
If you're looking for a rich character development, interesting characters, sympathetic characters, you're not gonna be happy.
You know what? You know what would get me excited about the third Strangers movie is if the movie trailer was this. There's like a completely different kind of character, and there's only one character, a really good actor, like a 17-year-old boy looking out the window of a house similar to the one in the first movie that's in the middle of nowhere, and you get the feeling like it's out in the boondocks, you know, and he's looking out the window at a long-ass driveway, and the whole trailer is him breathing heavily, and then it shows what he's looking at, and the guy in the mask, in the scary guy that never says a word. It just shows him slowly walking down the driveway, and that's it. And then it just shows the kid like breathing heavily and being scared. I didn't mean to do that, but and that's it. That's the kind of shit that I would like. I don't like the Hollywoodness that they add to stuff, you know?
Yeah.
But let's go back to the prequel idea. Like, it sounds like we shouldn't be here once, like a story focused on these two couples. So do you want like it won't have anything to do with the strangers. It'll just be like this
A rom-com.
romantic comedy thing, nothing to do with the strangers, just these two characters, and you just know what their fate is. So you get to see them. It'll be this nice, boring love story.
It's not a horror movie at all. It's like
It's
a
a
romance.
rom-com.
It's like a romance movie.
And the only reason to justify this film is to say, you know what, we wanted to shed light on these two characters that showed up in The Strangers, so we blew $30 million on telling that story. And it ends with them walking towards a wedding.
It's like really, really good.
That isn't
And at
theirs.
the end of the movie, they're like, all right, now immediately put in The Strangers.
Yes.
It could be called The Strangers Meeting Each Other.
And then
Like,
go edit your review on IMDb.
Yeah, like
No, okay. What I mean,
I'm sorry, like I have to finish this. Okay.
Yeah.
Their relationship progresses to a point where they have to go to a wedding that isn't theirs, and that's where the movie would end. Because at the beginning of The Strangers, you see that they're at a wedding that, this wedding dinner party or whatever that isn't theirs. Like they're obviously not getting the ones getting married. So yeah, I mean, I like that idea, but I'm not really
It would be unique.
Romance type of love story type of guy, if you know what I mean. Romeo and Juliet suffices for me.
You don't love Walk to Remember? Come on, dude. That movie's great.
I'm not feeling like crying right now, so let's not talk about that movie. But hey, that movie's not. But anyways, let me kind of like go a little bit more on that idea real quick, because we do gotta kind of finish up soon. But I kind of do mean like kind of the relationship, so we could have more context that would make the strangers make more sense. You know what I mean, to their lives. But also, like, it would be cool is if they weren't the main characters, but they were in it for like the back half of the movie. But the first half of the movie was kind of like about other people who know them, who got terrorized by these same type of people and then murdered or something. And then the stranger killers or whatever keep an eye on Scott Speedman and Liv Tyler. And they're like, that's the next house that we're going to hit or something like that. You know what I mean? Like,
that makes more sense.
Yeah. And then so like you kind of get to see them a little bit more of how the relationship is, but also knowing that the killers who had just murdered people in the first half of the movie or something like that have their eyes on them. And then the movie ends, it goes black or something. And then you just hear, is Tamara home? And then the movie ends or something like that.
I think it would work better if like you had a prequel story of the Chronicles of the Strangers and the horrific things that they do, and towards the end of that movie it nods towards like it shows them at the wedding party.
I do like that. Dude,
and they're like,
do something.
Yeah, like Scott Speedman, that's his name, right? And Liv Tyler are sitting at this table, and it pans out to these three servants that are at the party. One's a waiter and the two are waitresses, and they're just like, you don't see their faces, but you see all three of them like staring at these two. That'd be cool.
That would be sick. That would be sick. We should write some fan fiction. That'd be legit. But okay, so I'm glad we recapped that. That was a good time doing that with you guys. So let's get into what we would rate this movie. Unit, how we do this is 1 through 10 dead bodies. If you think this is a perfect 10, then it's considered a massacre. So what is your rating of this movie? What would you rate it? 1 through 10?
Probably a 6, to be honest.
Okay. No, respectful. Got it.
It's better than your average slasher film, but it still doesn't have the chops to be a classic.
Okay. Being scared, what about you? What's your rating?
I'm going to rate it a 7. There was, I honestly think that this movie started off really strong. I remember the first time I watched it, I was actually on a date, and we were both very creeped out. And then the movie progressively got less scary. And I don't know, like the beginning of the movie when it shows the guy just standing in the background watching her, and the movie just gets less scary in my opinion. So I'm going to give it a 7 because it had a really strong, creepy beginning and then kind of a less scary ending.
Okay. 6 and a 7. And I'm going to give it, I would probably, The way I mean, okay, so a 5 out of 10 would be an F if we're going by like percentages, you know. So I'm not gonna say this movie is like a C, but I'd say this movie is like a good, I would say like 7.5 to an 8. And I would say that simply because the opening sequence is so scary when she's like, is Tamara home? And she's getting like, you know, effed with by these killers, and that song gets hit and it's on
Yeah.
skip and repeat, and that's freaky. And she even has that really good scream, which by the way, she had laryngitis through the filming of this movie, so that sucks. But she had a really good scream, and the killers are scary, and you get invested very fast into the characters. They really didn't have to give you any context for you to really care about them. The acting was good. The scenario is really good. The writing is so well done. And but I do agree with you being scared that it definitely gets kind of more, like you said, unit more paint by numbers towards the end of it. Which, how can you give a movie a 9 or a 10 if it's kind of paint by numbers? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I definitely, and I think when everybody thinks about this movie, when you go, "Hey, have you seen The Strangers?" I think the first thing that people think of is the whole first half of the movie.
Oh
I
yeah.
don't think anybody ever thinks like, "Oh, you remember that part when he's like looking for a radio?" You know what I mean? Like nobody thinks about that. Everybody thinks about the, is Tamara home? You know what I mean? And then you
I
think
did
about
like the jump scare where she pulls back the curtain of the glass door and the guy with the mask is standing on the other side. Usually don't like jump scares, but you see him and then he slams his hand on the window. That's just, I
very
actually
scary.
did that at the beginning of one of my videos a long time ago.
Oh, really?
As like an intro thing, yeah.
Wow.
I actually used I used the song that she kind of knocks over and it kind of goes on repeat. I used that in one at the beginning of my video.
It sounds like the person is singing Quicksilver. It's like Quicksilver in Quicksilver in. It's like,
I actually because I was
Joanna Newsom.
Joanna Newsom. I was really interested in this movie when I first saw it, and Joanna Newsom sings that song. It's called what is it called? Something the Bean.
I don't know.
The Sprout and the Bean. That's what it's called. And it's just kind of like an indie song. If you listen to the whole thing, it's really difficult to like pinpoint that point in the song where they had it skip. And the song doesn't sound creepy at all. It just sounds kind of like a boring indie kind of peaceful song. And I really, whoever did that, whoever chose that moment to have that song skip, that was brilliant. That was a big part of the movie to me that made it really scary.
Yeah, it reminded me a lot of Insidious. Tiptoe through the tulips.
Yeah. I don't know if they're actually saying Quicksilver. It just sounds like they are. There was a song called "Mama Tried." It's like this old country song that was playing when the guy was like approaching the room where he got shot, where like they accidentally shot the friend. I think the song, how it sounds in that context, made it creepy.
Yeah. Well, I think they whenever, okay, I'm really tired of little kids laughing or chanting, not scary anymore. And I'm really tired of like old school sounding music in horror movies. Like it's kind of lame. But if you can do it to where it skips and it just adds to the element of horror, I think it's done really well. All right, so thanks guys. I'm really happy you were able to come on. Unit, it was nice to talk to you. Being scared, it's always fun to have you. And I don't know what I'm doing for the next one yet, but we'll figure it out in the week or so to come. So
yeah. If you want to watch the if you want to watch the Strangers Pray at Night, we can do like another podcast down the line, like sometime on the sequel.
Yeah, dude.
That sounds really good. Idea. Just want to put sounds good there before we wrap things up here.
Yeah, and so I like to try and like shoot out my dudes. So Being Scared's got a channel. He's doing his super cool rain videos as always, and go check out his channel and sub if you haven't already. Unit's got a pretty huge channel himself, really good too. So go sub to him. Also sub to me if you wouldn't mind. Getting close to that 10,000 mark, so I'm excited for that. Yeah, and it just, again, it was really cool to have both of you guys on here at once. So thanks for being here, dude.
Yeah, it was really fun, man. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no problem. Anytime. So any last things you guys want to say?
No, I don't think
Watch The Strangers. Good movie.
If you haven't seen the original Strangers movie, you guys go watch that. Go watch that movie.
You'll upset Being Scared if you don't watch it.
Yeah, and say hi anytime you want. Don't be a stranger.
And then I'll be like being sad.
Yeah,
All right.
watch the movie and then come here. All right, guys, we got to wrap it up. See you guys later. Talk to you later.
Later.
All right. Bye.